Good morning. Welcome to worship from our Old Ship Meeting House. Welcome to all. We begin, as we do each week, with a bell and then with our prelude this morning, a piece by César Franck from, of course, from Christopher. We begin. We have gathered on this spring day on our ever-turning earth. We have gathered on screens, yes, but truly gathered. We gather to sing, if at a distance. We gather to pray, for prayer knows nothing of distance. May our hearts be lifted, our souls comforted, our hands inspired this spring day and days to come on our beautiful blue-green earth. May it be so. Our introit, We Are Not Our Own by Brian Wren will be sung by Katie Weintraub. We are not alone, thanks to Katie. Offering our chalice lighting words this morning is Ellen Curtin. Thanks very much, Ellen.
Good morning. This is a poem by incumbent United States Poet Laureate Joy Harjo. Praise the Rain. Praise the rain, the seagull dive, the curl of plant, the raven talk. Praise the hurt, the house slack, the stand of trees, the dignity. Praise the dark, the moon cradle, the sky fall, the bear sleep. Praise the mist, the warrior name, the earth eclipse, the fired leap. Praise the backwards upward sky, the baby cry, the spirit food. Praise canoe, the fish rush, the hole for frog, the upside down. Praise the day, the cloud cup, the mind flat, forget it all. Praise crazy, praise sad, praise the path on which we're led. Praise the roads on earth and water. Praise the eater and the eaten. Praise beginnings, praise the end. Praise the song and praise the singer. Praise the rain, it brings more rain. Praise the rain, it brings more rain.
Well, thank you, Ellen. In the spirit of praise and in the spirit of our faith, I light our flaming chalice this morning. We are invited to sing. If you have a hymn book, it's number 163, or perhaps you've downloaded it earlier, for the earth forever turning, number 163. Once again, welcome. Welcome to old timers, long-serving members and friends, and welcome to newcomers. If you are new to our parish, First Parish in Hingham, Old Ship Church Unitarian Universalist, Massachusetts, we invite you to get to know us by going onto our website, oldshipchurch.org. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm Reverend Ken Reed Brown. We look forward to getting to know you if you are among our newer folks. The only announcement is a reminder that, as every week, our fellowship hour will be a continuation on this Zoom link immediately following the service. Everyone is invited for conversation following the service. Stick around if you can. This morning, as we continue to be in the midst of our stewardship pledge drive, we have a stewardship testimonial from Old Ship member and chair of our Social Justice Council, Daveline Cooper. Daveline, thanks so much for doing this morning.
Sure. Thank you, Ken. Good morning, everyone. So the question is, why do I support Old Ship? First and foremost, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and I have been for about 40 years. When I moved to Hingham 30 years ago, I came to Old Ship because it was the local UU congregation. But why do I stay? In this area, there's lots of UU congregations, which was not my prior experience in either Alabama or Kentucky. But Old Ship has given me the space to grow spiritually, not just through the classes, the services, the conversations, but as I've developed my understanding of the important answers to the most important fundamental life questions, developed my answers, Old Ship has made space for me to be here, and that's precious. But when I think of Old Ship apart from Unitarian Universalism, I think of the people. I still see Ellen Blazer and Jan Colby and Jerry Stein in their respective pews. I remember Muriel Bledsoe calling me out of the blue one day, just as Kentucky was getting ready to play Stanford in the NCAA basketball tournament. I said hello, and she said, Daveline, is there a room for both of us at Old Ship? And I said, well, Muriel, it depends on who wins the game. And we laughed, and that went on. I can't imagine returning to the meeting house and not having Dick Murphy pass by my pew in the morning and say, good morning, Professor, as he has for years. These people were such blessings in my life. I think of all the people who've supported me in my times of illness and in my time of grief and loss. The hugs when my nephew Adam passed away unexpectedly almost 6 years ago. This community has been so supportive of me. So many experiences, the coming of age program, which gave me a lifelong friendship. Serving as president, which I got to know my vice president, and there again, another lifelong friend. The retreat weekends at Craigville, where I've met a whole new group of friends, including some of our incredible youth. And the group of women here who have served as role models for me about how to live a meaningful life. Women like Eva Marks, Jane Malmy, Diane Elliott, Kitty Ward, Joan Bledsoe, Elizabeth Torrey, so many others. My life has been so enriched by this Old Ship community and by Unitarian Universalism, and my support comes from my gratitude for that enrichment of my life. So I encourage each of you to consider how this community and how Unitarian Universalism has enriched your life. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Daveline. It's been a gift to us to have you among us all these many years. As it is, as you've said, a gift. Each one of our members and friends is a gift to us. Those that live only in our hearts, but still very much in our hearts, and those very much with us. Thank you again. Our time for all ages, as most weeks, will be offered by Chloe Brede. Chloe.
Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen here with you all for this story. And I hope you enjoy a story that I think has multiple dimensions, but also speaks to women's empowerment and to the environmental movement. So this is a monument located in a park by the sea. Inside the park, it is by a religious shrine or church for the Japanese Shinto religion in the city of Uto in Japan. If you are referring to the town in Japanese, you might say Utoshi, meaning Uto City. Utoshi is a small city located on a peninsula sort of in southern Japan, and it's not well known. In fact, I had not heard of it before hearing this story. Now, the monument is dedicated or in memory of this woman. Her name was Kathleen Mary Drew Baker. Kathleen, though, has never been to Japan. So why is there a monument to her there? I wonder. To figure this out, we probably have to learn a little bit more about Kathleen. She was born in England in 1901. Unlike many women at the time, she attended university and found her life passion studying seaweed. She would take the train from her university in Manchester to the coast of Wales to collect seaweed in little jam jars. So she'd take, used jam jars that she cleaned out and collect seaweed samples in them. So what is seaweed? It looks a lot like a plant, doesn't it? That's what we've got here in this picture. Seaweed does look a lot like a plant. In these pieces of art by the artist Josie Islin, seaweed can look, in fact, like an entire forest or maybe even a bouquet of flowers. Seaweed is algae. It's related to the same algae that we see sitting on top of lakes that gets stuck on our feet as we walk into the ocean or into a lake. Like the plants that we are used to on land, it gets its nutrition from the sun. Unlike plants on land, which contain many, many cells, some algae are made up of just one cell, while others are collections of a bunch of cells. It also doesn't have roots in the traditional way that we think of going into the soil and getting nutrients. Instead, some algae just floats freely on water, and some attaches itself using what's called a holdfast. And I thought you'd like to see that. It's like sort of roots of sorts that go around a clamshell or a rock or something and hold the seaweed there. So I think it looks a little funny. So what about Kathleen? Well, her research turned out to be really, really important. Kathleen did her groundbreaking research as an unpaid research fellow. When she got married, she was dismissed from her teaching position at the university because, as a consequence, they didn't employ women who were married at the university. Her husband, instead, in this lab that she used, even though she was this unpaid researcher, her husband helped her build a tidal tank, or a big tank of water that she used to study the seaweed. And she would still go out to the coast, walking every day, collecting her samples in her jam jars. Not every day, but she'd take the train out and collect her samples in her jam jars. Kathleen discovered that seaweed in Wales, called laver, has phases in life. One was the big seaweed phase that we see here in the picture, but another phase was small spores that grew on shells. The plant at the end of its life would release spores that would grow into new seaweed, sort of like a plant dropping seeds and then growing again. And so these are the spores, or these little pink things here. And for a long time, researchers and other folks thought that these spores were just their own separate algae, that they can't be related. And she figured out that they were in fact the same. So if there were shells around, the seaweed spores would have a place to go and then grow back the next year, sort of like a plant in a way. Now in Japan, nori, the same thing that Kathleen called laver, was a serious industry, but it was also really hard to predict. Farmers thought that seaweed would sometimes grow and sometimes not, and you couldn't really predict it. It was luck. It was almost like they would call seaweed growing akin to almost gambling in Japan. So around the time that Kathleen published her research, a Japanese researcher also read it and saw what she was saying. But the seaweed industry in Japan was also not doing so good. There had been hurricanes and other events that ruined the industry. But as they read her paper, they figured out how to grow seaweed. If they used the shells, placed them so that the seaweed spores had a place to go, they would provide a place for the spores to go, and then the seaweed would grow again. They figured out the life cycle and how to actually farm it sustainably. And so now communities like Utushi, one of the places where they farm seaweed in Japan in the water, was able to keep growing seaweed because of Kathleen. And so this is why Kathleen is affectionately called the mother of the sea. And even though she never went to Japan and she never knew that she had revived this entire industry and important cultural food, she was a hero in Japan and across the world, anywhere where they grow seaweed. And she actually died before she ever knew that this happened. In fact, seaweed is one of the many solutions right now that scientists are looking at to help with climate change. The more we farm it, the more it helps keep our water clean, and it also absorbs carbon. So it's a really good crop. And it's a pretty magical algae, I think, too. So I think Kathleen would really love that. That's sort of the solution that we're embracing. So let's keep embracing curiosity about the world, just like Kathleen, and using science and our curiosity to best care for it. So happy Earth Day, everybody.
Thank you so much for that story, true story, Chloe, that reminds us of the power of loving not necessarily the whole earth all at once, some part of it with curiosity and learning and then being able to give back. Thank you for that. We come to our time of sharing joys, sorrows, and concerns and lighting candles for those. This morning, I light a candle of deep sorrow. We learned just a couple of hours ago that overnight, Angela Harvey, dear Angela, died at home. Nigel discovered that she had passed. Though, as many of you know, Angela had a form of cancer. She had been doing well, feeling good, so we don't know the immediate cause of her passing. We do know how much we treasure her in our hearts and how much we treasure Nigel and hold him in our hearts. I'll be visiting with Nigel following our service this morning, and I will convey greetings and sympathy to him and to his family and their families. So I light a candle for Angela and for Nigel. May we hold her in our hearts and memories. May we hold Nigel in our hearts in a moment of silent recollection and dear remembrance. Each of us who knew Angela, knows Nigel, has our own particular memories. Just one that I'll share is anyone who attended our Kaylee, our song and poetry circle, well remembers Angela, who had some poem in hand, standing up to share the poem. Most people remain seated as they share, but she wanted to project with her beautiful English accent, and she did, always with a clever or beautiful poem, one way or another. So much to remember, always. These remaining candles I will light for whatever joys, sorrows, or concerns folks have entered into chat this morning, or that people are holding in their hearts, though not speaking or writing them among us this day. The candles burn for all of our joys, sorrows, and concerns. And I'd like to thank Joan Wilson for, once again, as she has often done, supplying beautiful flowers to grace our service. Whatever else is in our lives, joy or sorrow or threaded mix of the two, we always need beauty. Thank you, Joan. May we enter our time of meditation, prayer, and shared silence. In these moments that we share, whatever distances seem to separate us, we are invited to allow our bodies and minds to be still, to rest, just to breathe, and to breathe again. And from this deeper stillness, may we, each of us, be attentive to whatever arising yearnings of the heart we feel, experience, arising prayers. Perhaps a prayer for a dear one living through a hard time, as this morning we all hold Nigel in our prayers. Prayers for comfort in the midst of grief, for Nigel and for all those who grieve this season, this year. Perhaps prayers for direction, our own or a dear one in the midst of confusion, uncertainty. Perhaps prayers for so many that we don't even know, those seeking justice, families of George Floyd, of Dante Wright, so many, too many others. For those in the midst of war, yearning for peace, war or insurrection, struggle, whether in Myanmar, Palestine, Afghanistan, so many places, all our brothers and sisters, those oppressed, seeking freedom, better way of life, those at the border. So many prayers from the depths of our hearts, from love, for love, God's other name, love. May our meditations and prayers now continue in the silence that we share. Our anthem this morning will be sung by Chris Marr. It's a piece by Handel, Ombra Ma Fu. You may not understand the words, but they have to do with a beautiful, peaceful shade tree. With thanks to Chris Marr. that's at least as healing as the shade of a beautiful tree. Thank you, Chris and Christopher. We have two readings this morning. The first will be shared by Connie Gorfinkel, so it's time to unmute Connie and share your reading. Thanks so much for doing this for us this morning. Connie.
Okay. This first reading is from the book Early Spring by Amy Seidel. Since 1965, the United States Department of Agriculture has found that on average, lilacs in the United States are blooming 2 to 4 days earlier per decade than they did 40 years ago. In China, Syringa oblata, an Asian lilac, is also blooming earlier, on average 3 days earlier per decade since 1963. Other plants are responding even faster than lilacs to temperature increases. Launicera tatarica, a honeysuckle, and Trifolium repens, white clover, are blooming approximately 4 days and 7.5 days earlier each decade, respectively, since the 1960s. Lilacs bloom 8 to 16 days earlier than they did when I was born. And by the time my daughters are my age, the lilacs in the hollow will be blooming 14 to 28 days earlier than they are now, in April rather than in May. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Connie. And now, Kitty, it's your turn to unmute and share your reading for us this morning. Thanks so much, Kitty. You do need to unmute yourself, Kitty, please. There we go.
Our second reading is from Love Letter to the Earth by Thich Nhat Hanh. We can't wait any longer to restore our relationship with the earth, because right now the earth and everyone on earth is in real danger. When a society is overcome by greed and pride, there is violence and unnecessary devastation. When we perpetrate violence toward our own and other species, we're being violent toward ourselves at the same time. When we know how to protect all beings, we will be protecting ourselves. A spiritual revolution is necessary if we're going to confront the environmental challenges that face us. Real change will happen only when we fall in love with our planet. Only love can show us how to live in harmony with nature and with each other, and save us from the devastating effects of environmental destruction and climate change. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Kitty. Both of you, beautifully done. Only love. Yes, only love. Our offering will now be invited to give, as we will receive. Our offering, as most of you know, can be either for our ongoing ministries, our plate offering, or they can be for our special plate, our outreach offering for the month, which this month is for SOLA, the School of Leadership in Afghanistan, a wonderful school for girls that we heard about from its director, Shabana, a couple of weeks ago. So on the donate, through the donate button on our website, you will have options for how to direct your gift. Whatever you choose to give and however much, we are grateful. Thank you in advance. Our offertory this morning will be, the music will be shared by Christopher and me, and it's a song that many of you may know by Pete Seeger. I've been singing this, been aware of it for decades. My Rainbow Race by Pete Seeger. If we did the chorus along, you might know the chorus. You can sing along. One blue sky above us, one ocean lapping all our shores. my rainbow race. It's too soon to die.
Some folks want to be like an ostrich, bury their heads in the sand. Some hope that plastic dreams can unclench those greedy hands.
Some want to take the easy way. Poison's one thing we need. Don't you know you can't kill all the unbelievers? There's no shortcut to freedom. One blue sky above us, one ocean wrapping all our shore. One earth so green and round. Who could ask for more? And because I love you, I'll give it one more try to show my rainbow race. It's too soon to die.
Don't tell our little children, their mothers and fathers too.
Now's our last chance to learn to share what's been given to me and you. That's one blue sky above us, one ocean lapping all our shore, one earth so green and round. Who could ask for more? And because I love you, I'll give it one more try to show my rainbow race. It's too soon to die. Well, thank you, Christopher. Thanks to all of you who may have been singing right. One blue sky above us. It's all about love, as we heard at the end of that reading, as we heard really in the story from Chloe earlier. This scientist loved the seaweed. It's good that someone does. And we heard what that led to. Love. Love leads to so much. Love of so many kinds. So this is my sermon for Earth Day, later this week, of course, titled, Who Speaks for Earth? The utterly natural miracle of life on our rainbow race called Earth is always present, yet on particularly full view in the spring. Leaves at the end of a dry stick, small, alive, leaves out of wood. It was wonderful. You can't imagine, affirmed the poet Archibald MacLeish. And there's so much more. The daffodils coming to life in all their exuberant color. Chipmunks wakened from winter slumber, rushing here and there, who know in the way that chipmunks know where they're going and why and what for and so on. Cardinals and song sparrows singing each morning in chorus with so many other birds that I, in my ignorance, cannot identify, but I can love the chorus as I do. Well, with all this in view, this and so much more in view and in mind and in heart, I found my eyes drawn to words from Bill McKibben that have long rested on my desk. I've got all these little quotes, but I hadn't really taken note for a long time, but they caught my eye this week. Bill McKibben wrote this. He said, "To be in love with the world is particularly lucky, as it's everywhere, city, country, suburb. And luckiest of all is that it's never too late to fall into this particular thrall. All you need to do is to begin to look around. Just look around. I see Colin, I see Christopher, I see the trees budding with their leaves out the windows. Love. It is said, so much is going on in our nation these spring days. We know all too well, aside from the onset of spring, is the heartbreak of yet another black man, young black man killed by police, unending gun violence. We mourn with the Sikh community and others in Indianapolis. And every day, all those we never hear about losing their lives to guns, partisan divisions ever deepening. And of course, none of this and more ought to be swept under the rug of some sunny, feel-good optimism divorced from everything else that's going on in the world. But at the same time, none of these tragic and hard and challenging realities and crises need prevent us from grounding ourselves in beauty and in miracle. In fact, I would affirm we must ground ourselves in such qualities as beauty and the miracle of life, in love, ground ourselves in love and in gratitude. Simply to get through each day, we need to ground ourselves in such ways, and then to be of better use to our neighbors, to our community, to our nation, and to the world. We must be grounded in all that we love, the beauty and miracle of life and of each one of us and each creature. And to re-ground ourselves, all we need to do is look around, as Bill McKibben said, and maybe fall in love again with the world, with the earth. We heard Thich Nhat Hanh's affirmation from his love letter to Earth that real change will happen only when we fall in love with our planet. And whether you can fall in love with the whole planet, I think sometimes we can feel that when we see that wonderful photograph or many photographs from space. Often it's easier to fall in love with one part of the part we're closest to of our Earth home. So I guess that's part of my reminder to myself and to us this morning, which is allow ourselves to invite ourselves to fall in love with our planet in all its particulars. One morning this week, one of those too few luxuriant April spring mornings that we've had during this fickle, which is to say typical April month, I felt with no particular effort in love with the world as I ran under blue skies, the sun emerging from breaking clouds across the greening golf course. No golfers yet to be concerned about with flying golf balls. Just the beauty of the green and the birds singing. It was easy that morning to feel in love with the world. Not every morning has been just like that one. Another morning this week, in fact, several, it was more difficult. I found it more difficult to feel that love. One of those frequent gray and chilly ones. I found it required some effort of attention to feel that love. Again, on a different sort of morning, not so bright and clear. You know, too often I think I take for granted the beauty around me, whether on a bright, beautiful day or on a gray, chilly day, and my mind goes to other things. But the subtle beauty of a gray day is present too, if I would pay attention. Pay attention, Ken. Sounds like an easy message. Why not a little effort? Poet Mary Oliver summed it up this way. Some of you remember these few words. She wrote, "Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it." I guess that's part of what I'm doing this morning, though nowhere near as concisely or poetically as that poet, our dear Mary Oliver, did so often. Well, I'm going to circle back to the title of my sermon, Who Speaks for Earth? The simple and first answer is, well, Earth speaks for herself. Thank you very much. And our role as human beings, travelers with Earth and with all life, our role is, you might say, as translators. The first reading this morning, for example, that we heard, turns out that Earth has been telling us for a long time in many of her various languages, and one of which is the blooming flowers, telling us that her climate is changing. Earth has been speaking this in the voice of the blooming flowers and other voices as well. One of her many languages, the blooming flowers. And fortunately, some of us have been paying attention, like Amy Seidel, from whom we heard in that reading. Gratefully, some have been paying attention much longer. Some of you may be aware that Henry David Thoreau during some of the last years of his life in the 1850s, on his walks, which have been a lifelong habit, was in the spring carefully cataloging, making note of the first bloom of the various wildflowers in the Concord woods and fields. He did this throughout the decade and kept these detailed records, and his careful, loving attention, for attention is a form of love. If I didn't say that already, I'm saying it now. Attention is a form of love. Because of his careful, loving attention, we are now able to compare, and have been for a while now, been able to compare his records with the blooming times now in Concord and elsewhere. An even longer set of records that Amy Seidel was drawing upon in her own personal life. Well, it turns out that first blooms of various wildflowers in Concord are anywhere from a week to 3 weeks earlier these days as compared to the 1850s. Earth is and has for some time been speaking in this language, been telling us something. If we would translate, botanists and other scientists have been translating her messages. We need to hear them. We need to hear them. And we can only hope that not only hear, but respond, that we might learn to live more closely aligned with Earth's natural rhythms, so that life, not just human life, but all life might flourish. For all life is interdependently dependent upon all other life. And after all, this flourishing, after all, isn't that what lovers want? The health and well-being of their beloved, the flourishing, which among other things means that we must give as much as we take in any relationship. Robin Wall Kimmerer, a botanist and member of the Potawatomi Nation, tells us in Braiding Sweetgrass, I spoke about her book a few weeks ago, many of you have read it. Along the way, she tells us that an Algonquin ecologist, Carol Crow, had once requested funding from her tribal council to attend a meeting, a seminar on sustainability. Well, members of the council asked her, what does this mean, sustainability? And she responded in part with kind of standard definition, quote, sustainability is, quote, the management of natural resources and social institutions in such a manner as to ensure attainment and continued satisfaction of human needs for present and future generations. Well, members of the tribal council listened, and here's what one of the elders said in response. He said, this sustainable development sounds to me like they just want to be able to keep on taking like they always have. It's always about taking. And then he said, so you go there and tell them that in our way, our first thoughts are not, what can we take, but what can we give to Mother Earth? That's how it's supposed to be, he said. Well, isn't that beautiful? Yet I am left wondering, what does this mean for me to give to Mother Earth? I guess I know a little bit about taking less, driving less and more efficiently, turning down the thermostat in the winter, eating lower on the food chain and so on. But giving to Mother Earth, beyond composting, I'm not sure what that might mean, though maybe we are in a way giving to Mother Earth when we take less. Maybe we are giving to Mother Earth when we encourage elected officials, corporate leaders, and so on to meet the climate crisis, to move in the direction of earth care and so on. Maybe here in Hingham, we're giving to Mother Earth when we support the warrant article at town meeting coming up in May to develop a climate action plan for the town. Maybe all these are forms of giving to Mother Earth. And maybe we're giving to Mother Earth when we simply really pay attention. Think of this for yourself. Don't you feel that your loved one or friend's attention, or anyone's attention to you, is a kind of gift, a giving to you? Simply that someone is profoundly attentive is a great gift. Drawing to a conclusion, I want to share these words from Terry Tempest Williams, fine writer, ecologically oriented environmentalist. She wrote, "We are a species known as Homo sapiens, often paralyzed by despair, having forgotten who we are together in our adamant claims of difference. Fortunately, we live among other species," she wrote, "many unknown to us, who show us how to enter the home of another and offer the gift of attention and presence. We learn to listen," she said. We must learn to listen. Well, then, at the very least, may we learn to pay better attention, to listen. This gift of love and listening to earth, at the very least, may we learn to pay better attention, to listen to bird and beast, tree and flower, and surely to one another, this profound gift. Attention, love, and listening as pathways to healing, to giving, to flourishing. This day, this Earth Day, and always, may it be so. Can you tell me a better way to live? May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. I extinguish the flames of our candles of joy and sorrow. We continue to hold one another with love, whatever joys and sorrows we carry this day, this season. And I extinguish the flame of our chalice. I cannot extinguish the love with which it was lit. I cannot extinguish our faith that we carry forward wherever we go, whomever we are with, whenever we do. Chalice seemed to have extinguished itself. We carry the faith. We have been carrying the faith. May we carry the faith always. To begin with, as we sing, Blue Boat Home. It's number 264 in our soft-covered teal hymn book, and perhaps some of you again have downloaded it. Blue Boat Home.
Far away from the rolling
May we be faithful sailors on our blue boat home this Earth Day and always, stewards of sea and land, of bird and beast, tree and flower, good stewards, givers of attentive care and kindness and love to one another, to all beings, as we journey together on this, our blue boat home, our shared Earth home. So may it be. Blessed be. Amen.
May you run and not be weary. May your heart be filled with song. May the love of God continue to give you hope and keep you strong. May you run and not be weary, and may your life be filled with joy, and may the road you travel always lead you home.
Griggs Spring Dance. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you all for being present this day. Go in peace.